TGIF, friends, trolls, and everyone in between. This is Star Spangled Eggs, and it's Friday, getting down on Friday. And as it is Friday, I have some time off, so I'm going to go ahead and make that video that I promised before. It's going to be about the objections to injustice that I've been hearing quite frequently. Whether it's been at work, whether it's been in the comments and things to my friends. I've heard 4 big ones that I wanted to address here because I hear them far too much every day. So I want to go ahead and put out my mindset on it and see if I can try to explain what my thoughts on it may be. And maybe if you have these questions too, it might be able to help you come to more closer terms with your concerns. But even if I can't, the demo's coming out on April 2nd for PSN, April 3rd for Xbox 360, so you can go ahead and try it yourself and see if it's as big of a problem as you might have thought. Alright, we'll go ahead and dive on into this then. One big complaint that I keep hearing is that there are no air dashes in the game. And to me, this is a complaint that spawns from the fact that there are a lot of characters in the game who can fly, so it only seems reasonable for them to have flight or air dash maneuvers at their disposal. We live in a very air dash heavy community. Air dashes are almost essential for combos in a whole lot of games. They help to extend combos a lot. And as the opinions vary on this, this is my opinion here. And that is that, yeah, the game might lack air dashes, but it's not game breaking. I mean, after all, Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat don't have air dashes, minus a very rare few scattered characters throughout the entire series of games. But for the most part, they don't have air dashes. And are those games bad because they don't have air dashes? Well, of course not. And each of them are playable and fun based upon their own fighting engines. And so, to me, it seems logical to think that NetherRealms probably knows what air dashes are, and knows that they could have included them in the game. But they chose not to, and probably for good reason, and this is because it is such a standard in fighting games that we've almost come to expect out of every fighter that comes out. They probably took that into consideration when they were making the game, and the reason why I think they leave it out is almost like the reason why Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat would leave it out, where it sort of is out of place, it doesn't fit, it's not necessary for the game to be the way that it is or the way they wanted it to be. So I'm not too concerned about that, and I think once we get our hands on the game, we'll be able to tell for ourselves that exact thing. Alright, so the second concern that I've been hearing a lot is, and this one's actually kind of, I don't know how to put it, this one actually irks me a little bit, and they say, I don't want the game, it's a T-rated game, as opposed to being rated M. And so first off, I would like to start by saying there are plenty of T-rated games that are astounding. Street Fighter is rated T, Tekken is rated T, Soul Calibur is rated T, Marvel vs. Capcom is rated T, Skullgirls is rated T, King of Fighters is rated T, Arcana Heart is rated T, and that's just to name a few of them, okay? And that's strictly reserving just to fighting games. And none of those are bad games just because they're rated T. You know, of course not, that'd be silly, because, and in my opinion, that's one of the silliest misconceptions of our current, for lack of a better term, bloodthirsty and profane generation. Just because a game is rated T doesn't mean that it won't be good because there's some sort of restraint on content. In fact, to me, the content that matters most is a good story, great gameplay, and most of all, just fun and how much fun you have in the game. Everything else is simply like icing letters on the cake. It's a nice addition to the cake, but the cake would still be good with or without it, in my opinion. Making a game rated T also opens up your sales opportunities as a company. I mean, I work at a game store, and more customers than not come in, they have children, and some children get to play rated M games, but most of them do not, actually. Most parents are like, oh, that's too violent. But most parents, however, will consent to letting them play T-rated content even if they're under 13 or so, just because that's sort of almost expected in our current society where it's like E-rated games get boring after a while to the younger generation. And so, and if you really think about it, who's the largest market consumer and user of video games? Well, it's the same demographic that comes into my store every day in hordes, and that's children. Nowadays, we're changing that a little bit as the adult demographic of gamers is on a rapid rise as more adults are finding joys of video gaming, though often through rated M content, which is what spawns the objection in the first place. Older audiences don't think that T rating means they think it kind of associates it as more of a kid's game than a grown-up's game. Because a grown-up, 17 and older, it's like rated R movies, oh yeah, some movies I also hear are not good because they aren't rated R. But I've seen plenty of movies, and there's a lot of good movies, the Avengers, the Batman series, they're all really good. None of them are rated R. But that's a whole nother thing. And for those of you who are kind of on that boat with the T rating thing being a kid's game, let me tell you what they got away with a T rating. And I gotta give shout outs to Kevin, who actually commented these details in the story in a post to one of my other videos. So shout outs to you, Kevin. Thank you very much. He's been reading the comic, and he's actually recommended to me. I've started reading them, and I recommend you do so as well. Keep up the story. So he's reported the story, what it will be, and it is as follows, and hopefully none of it is spoilers, but it's the beginning of the story anyway, so it wouldn't really be that much of a spoiler anyway. So what happens is Superman is actually tricked into killing Lois Lane and his unborn child by the Joker, who infused kryptonite into Scarecrow's hallucinogenic gas to make him vulnerable to the horrific visions it induces. Not only does he kill her and his child under his drugging, but doing so also triggers a bomb that flattens his city in seconds. Once he realizes what he has done, even though it was to no fault of his own, he killed the Joker in his rage and instated a regime to protect innocents everywhere under his Kryptonian fist. At first this was a good idea that a lot of people hopped on board with, but eventually it goes too far and Batman starts an insurgency against Superman's regime to bring it down because of its corruption. The lines between heroes and villains we once knew drawn will be erased and redrawn, splitting friendships and alliances while creating new ones unexpected by all. Heroes and villains will die, and it's anyone's guess as to what the end will ultimately be. Who or what will be left in the wake of this superhero war, if anything or anyone? No one knows for sure, but I know for certain that I want to find out. And no, I didn't read that off a website, I wrote that up myself, so just in case you thought I was sounded a little scripted there. That was scripted. I am reading it here. So there will be blood, death, rage, and war in this game. So I don't want to hear any more whining about it being rated T, because that story sounds freaking awesome. I could easily see, they already have the comics going right now based on the game, not the other way around. And I could easily see a movie or, a TV special or something like that based on this, because it sounds really awesome. So being rated T doesn't decide how good a game is, okay? And if anybody else has any thoughts on that, I'd love to hear those in the comments below. Number 3, I'm no good at Mortal Kombat, I'm a Street Fighter guy. I want to say two things about this. One, I'm a Street Fighter guy myself. It was the very first fighting game I ever picked up and played, and it's arguably the one I'm best at. And luckily for us Street Fighters, NetherRealms thought about us and included an option for Street Fighter style controls. Opting for, instead of the directional, down and then forward, it gives us quarter circle motions and things that we are more accustomed to. So it will control like a Street Fighter game if you would like to set it to do that. You don't have to. It's something that they've given to us as an option to help us to enter the game with everyone else. And the other thing to remember is that this isn't Mortal Kombat, this is Injustice. Yes, it was made by the people who made Mortal Kombat, and it does share a few aspects of its predecessor, but they are overall very different games, and let me tell you a couple reasons why. 1. The button layouts are quite different, changing the punches and kicks for a light, medium, heavy, and character power button scheme, and actually completely removing the block button. So if you were annoyed by the block button like I was, coming from a Street Fighter background, this is opting for more classic fighter style blocking, so that's good. 2. The match system here is very different than Mortal Kombat, opting for the continuous 2 health bar match system as opposed to the typical rounds we see in most fighting games. And there's mixed opinions on that. To me, I don't mind so much, but it is something different to know. Number 3, and most importantly, the stages are hugely interactable, and they are a large factor in common fights. With extra projectiles and mobility options interlaced within each arena, and every character using them differently, matches are far more complex than just player 1 and player 2. And on top of all that, there's still push blocks, power bursts, and the new clash system, and all this other stuff, but I won't dive into all that for the sake of time. Case in point, this is Injustice, and it's not Mortal Kombat. It makes me cringe when people say that they're the same, that this game is just Mortal Kombat with DC characters. Claiming them to be the same shows a lack of understanding of the fighting game and the intricacies that are here. So, if you're still on the boat where it's kind of basically Mortal Kombat, just try the demo. I guess if you can't see it from like the gameplay in the videos and from the control schemes, just try it out yourself. You'll know that it'll look and sort of have the same general feel as Mortal Kombat, but they'll definitely play out differently. Alright, and the last one, number 4. I'm not very good at fighting games. I hear that all too often at my work, especially when talking about this game, trying to get people to pre-order it. So, luckily, you really don't have to be good at fighting games to play Injustice. NetherRealms actually worked really hard to make their system an easy to learn but hard to master type of game for just that. Because I think they really knew that their story is going to be really good. And, I mean, Mortal Kombat's story was really good. I had a lot of friends who bought the game who sucked at Mortal Kombat like I did, but I played through the story because it was a really good story. It wasn't a very easy thing to do, I guess you could say, since I was really bad at learning how to use the block button instead of just holding down back, and I'd always, take stupid hits because I'd forget to use the button. But luckily, just like there, and now they're even doing an even better job here. People who are going to want to play through the story because of how awesome it is will be able to, because the game is not super hard to really do. I mean, supers in the game are just like pressing the two triggers, you know. You got light, medium, heavy attack scheme, and kind of like Marvel vs. Capcom, but then, you know, really getting and diving into the intricacies of it is going to be the hard to master part, and I'm looking forward to that. And then along with that, if you don't know how to play this game really, it includes a good tutorial for each character within the Star Labs missions mode, and that'll help you teach the game even further. And if I had to guess, they'll most likely have a tutorial mode outside of the character specific missions that will help to teach you the basics of the game. Although one hasn't been formally announced yet. I don't think they've spent any time talking about it, to my knowledge. If I am wrong, I would love to be corrected on that. So all in all, Injustice will be awesome and there's no reason to be afraid of it. Like I said in my other videos, this game has no shame of showing off its gameplay. And they have no reason to be. They have an awesome game that I can't wait to see in action for myself. And we can all have the chance in a whole 2 weeks when the demo comes out. Remember, April 2nd and April 3rd. And one final thought to just wrap it all up, and every other concern you may even be thinking about in the back of your head, like Mario Interactable is going to be unbalanced, or whatever you might be thinking. This is a NetherRealms game, guys. You know, we've seen from Mortal Kombat that they have built their infrastructure, and they're one of the only companies I know that's ever done it, to make patches and tweaks on the go really easy, and they'll be monitoring the balance and seeing what things are going to be overpowered, underpowered, and be adjusting it as such through that. So if nothing else, bank on the fact that they're going to do their best to make sure it's a balanced game and that it's fair, and that every character is a viable character. So even if zoning seems strong at the forefront of the game, they not only have been working with pros to make sure, you know, because I'm sure the pros would have said, hey guys, look, zoning is kind of really powerful here because your stages are so long, for instance. Example from my friend Jay Street, shout out to you, man. As they've been working with pros, I think that would have been a voiced concern. And if that was a voiced concern, I think NetherRealms would have already put things in place to try and fix it. So, and then any other thing that maybe develops, you know, you find a really easy exploit to it where it's really cheap in certain characters' hands or whatever the case may be, they'll be able to patch it really quickly and we won't have to wait too long. So, that's really what keeps me fearless about this game. Aside from the fact that they don't have any shame showing off their gameplay, they also have an easy system in place to be able to patch it should anything become a problem really quick. And they have went ahead and assured us that they do want to make this game balanced. They want to make it fair, so if something does need patching, they will jump right on it. So I'm not afraid. If after all this you still have an objection or two to the game, just try the demo, like I was saying earlier, and see what you think of it for yourself. And if you haven't already, pre-order the game to get the bonus costumes and missions, because there's already 260 missions on release, so why not make it 280 on release and have some pretty sick costumes too, right? And if you like the demo, the Season Pass also is out there. It sells you $25 worth of content for only $15, as well as further DLC should they find reason to make it. Hopefully the Season Pass, like they say, if they're going to be able to make a little bit more content after this initial release, we will also be probably getting that, is what they said. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about the Season Pass. Thanks for listening, friends, trolls, and everyone in between. Let me know what you think. If there's any other common objections to this game you've heard or had a response to. You guys rock and Justice rocks, and I hope your day rocks. Have a great one, guys.